The Cuphead Show is an American animated series based off the video game by Studio MDHR. The first season aired on Netflix on February 18th, 2022, consisting of 12 episodes which are roughly about 11 minutes each. I really wanted to talk about the Cuphead Show for a few reasons. One, I've never really done an initial thoughts type of video before, so I wanted to see how I do with that format. Two, I am a huge fan of old animated theatrical shorts. Disney, Warner Brothers, Fleischer Brothers, MGM, all that stuff. I was considering making a video covering those topics, and maybe I will down the road. Since the Cuphead Show is obviously very much inspired by those shorts, it seems like a good place to start. Before getting into the show, I'll talk about what I thought about the game. I've played through Cuphead twice, once solo and once co-op. It is truly a fantastic and very difficult game which uses its art style to its fullest potential. It drew me in with its obvious tribute to rubber hose style animation, and kept me playing with its tight controls and gameplay mechanics. The gameplay to me was reminiscent of classic shoot 'em up style side-scrollers like Gunstar Heroes or Metal Slug. Basically, Cuphead combined everything I love about 1930s animation and 1990s video games, so it easily found a way into my heart. When I first heard news of the show, I was really excited because I felt the concept could lend itself well to an animated series. I was a little worried because I heard the show was not going to be animated in the traditional style of animation that the game was animated with. I felt that could have been a really good way to reintroduce traditional hand-drawn animation back into the world of television. I'll comment about what I thought of the final product of the show's animation a little later. The series was developed by Dave Wasson, with game creators Chad and Jared Mollenhauer on board as executive producers. Dave Wasson has several credits for prior animated series including Time Squad, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, and The Buzz on Maggie. The only other credit of his I was familiar with was his work on the Mickey Mouse shorts. He demonstrated with Mickey Mouse that he knows how to combine older style animation with contemporary plots, so in my opinion he was a great choice to spearhead the Cuphead Show. Last week the Cuphead Show was released, and the following day, I got a chance to sit down and watch all 12 episodes from start to finish. Full disclosure, I was pretty stoned while watching it, but that's okay as long as I'm upfront about it. I'm also an adult living in Canada, so Mary Jane is a very welcome guest at my watch parties. With all that said, let's delve into the Cuphead Show. My overall opinion is that the show was really good. Not perfect, it has its missteps here and there, but I definitely found a lot more to appreciate than to condemn. Instantly upon watching, I was extremely impressed with the look of the show. Even if it wasn't exactly like the game, the characters have the same vibrant movement and creative designs which make them stand out in the first place. There's even a distinct grainy filter which I noticed throughout the entire show, which adds to the authenticity. I especially love the backgrounds, which are beautifully drawn and incredibly moody. I said before that I was worried about the animation from the get-go, since I knew it wasn't going to be done in the traditional hand-drawn animation that the game was done in. With the talent that the artists of this show demonstrate, that issue was quickly put to rest. I will admit, there is a part of me that is still curious what the show would have been like had it been drawn traditionally, but by no means does that ruin the experience of the show they made. The computer-drawn animation takes full advantage of its medium and even achieves things that wouldn't be possible through pen and paper. The terrain, for example, is often done with 3D animation, which mixes in great with the 2D style. It helps the show feel modern without breaking the immersion, which is quite the accomplishment. The artists do a great job at capturing the look and feel of cartoons from the golden era. There are even direct references to some of those old animations, much like how the game used other cartoons for reference. For example, the first episode has a reference to Chuck Jones' How the Grinch Stole Christmas during the Devil's Song. I'm sure many animation experts will have fun pointing out even more instances of classical animation references littered throughout the series. You really feel like the show is taking place in the 30s. I also really like how the show keeps old technology rather than modernizing the characters, similarly to something like the Peanuts movie. In this show, the characters speak on landlines, listen to radio for fun, go to the carnival, etc. I'm really glad there wasn't some dumb executive at Netflix going, "Kids can't relate to this type of thing, Cuphead needs a TikTok account." Visually speaking, I have no complaints with the Cuphead Show. Its aesthetic choices work out really well and everything looks super smooth. It's very obvious to see that the creators put a lot of time, effort, and care into the final product. The result is one of the best looking animated series that Netflix has produced to this day. I talked about the animation first because the initial draw of Cuphead, both in terms of the show and the game, is its animation style. However, in regards to the game, once you dig deeper than the surface level animation, you still get an incredibly solid platformer with precise controls and great physics. In other words, the game is more than the sum of its visuals and has actual depth to it. Does the Cuphead Show accomplish a similar task and add depth to accompany its wonderful visuals? Let's get into it. The show stars Cuphead and his brother Mugman living on the Inkwell Isles with their, parental guardian Elder Kettle. For the most part, the first season is very episodic, with Cuphead and Mugman coming into contact with a different conflict and a different character each time. The only real bit of serialization that the show has is with the Devil, the main antagonist of both the game and the show. The Devil appears in 4 of the 12 released episodes where he tries to take Cuphead's soul. The plots of many of the episodes take cues from many classical animation situations, such as going to a carnival, looking after a baby, and painting a fence. I feel this was the right route to take, even if the implementation can be a little bit iffy. One thing I do like about the flow of the plots is how they progressively get darker as the episode continues. Sometimes they can even end up turning into elaborate boss fights akin to what you would see in the actual Cuphead game. There's even one episode where Mugman breaks his handle and Cuphead tries to glue it back on. I wonder if the writers of this show watched Hot Diggity Demon's Cuphead parody. Before I get into the characters, let me say that all over the board, the voice acting is great. The actors nail the accents of old cartoon characters, and they all sound both genuine to that time and really funny in their own right. The show also features its fair share of musical numbers, which are pretty fun as well. Anyone familiar with older animation knows music plays a big part in those shorts, so it's natural to include them here. There isn't a song in every episode, which I like because it doesn't feel like they have to include them to meet a quota. They're spaced out nicely and feel more special when they do arise. I do have to say, I kinda wish they got the barbershop quartet from the game to make an appearance, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Maybe in Season 2. On to the characters, let's start with Cuphead and Mugman. These two have a very classic hero-sidekick repertoire. Cuphead is brave, but also a little too impulsive, whereas Mugman is smart, but also kind of cowardly. This dynamic seems to be inspired by Mario and Luigi, which it very likely was, considering this show is based off of a video game. Overall, they're both very likable even if they're not particularly deep. Another prominent reoccurring character is Elder Kettle. This character can switch from being very mature and sensible to being very childish and irrational, depending on the situation he's experiencing. This could make him inconsistent, but I actually think he's funnier because he's unpredictable. Finally, we have the Devil, which I have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, he's a really funny character with a great design and voice. On the other hand, he's almost too silly to be truly intimidating, and I definitely think the showrunners wanted him to be seen as threatening. Maybe in subsequent seasons he'll get darker and eviler, but as it stands, he's a decent villain with some funny lines. The show features many reoccurring and one-off characters, many of which appeared in the game. It's actually very true to the game in many areas, which will give fans a lot to appreciate. It also mixes some original characters in there as well, showing that while it stays true to the game, it's also not completely reliant on its source material for ideas. All in all, I do really think that the plots and the characters in the Cuphead show work really well. The problem I have comes with exactly how the show decides to implement them as a whole. I'm not sure if taking the episodic approach with some serialization here and there was really the best choice. The show for the most part is a great blend between modern and classical storytelling, both in its stories and animation. I think this blend would have been even better if the show stuck to a larger narrative in the background of its episodic plots. Having the Devil's presence looming over Cuphead and Mugman even indirectly would have both added to his character and the overall structure of the series. It also would have been a good opportunity to be even more authentic to the original game. The lack of character development does kind of hamper a bit of the impact the show could have potentially had. Cuphead doesn't really develop or learn anything from the first episode to the last. Mugman, you could argue, learns to be braver in the 10th episode, but the 2 subsequent episodes don't make it very clear if that's a permanent character development to his character or not. The 12th episode also ends on a cliffhanger which has nothing to do with the Devil or any of the serialized elements up to that point. I thought that was a really odd choice. In my opinion, the show probably would have worked better if Cuphead and Mugman set out on a quest to fight the Devil. Getting into everyday situations and waiting for the Devil to come to them doesn't really have the same impact. With that said, I don't want to be too harsh on the show because I really did like it. The problems I had are certainly things I can see being ironed out in subsequent seasons. Since the show has been greenlit for seasons 2 and 3, I'm crossing my fingers for it to only get better in quality. If you really think about it, the Cuphead show has kind of a tall order. 1. It has to appease the fans of the games while introducing characters to a larger audience. 2. It uses both cartoon logic and video game logic in one seamless combo. 3. It includes elements of classic animation while mixing it with contemporary animation. And 4. It makes references to both the game and other cartoons while being original. I'd say the Cuphead Show accomplished most of what it set out to accomplish. This is a really fun show, and with a little more time to develop ideas, this could be Netflix's next runaway video game-based hit after Castlevania. While it's not quite on that level of quality yet, the Cuphead Show is really good and gives me hope for more good things to come. Big shout out to my friend Uno Apex at the Headless Gamer channel. He got all the Cuphead game footage for this video. If you want to check him out, his channel is in the description, and I will see you all in another video.